Hello, everyone. This is Nidhi from Designhill, your host for today. I hope you and your family are keeping well and safe in these testing times, taking care of your near and dear ones, and each one of you who is around you. I would like to welcome you all in this session where we are discussing today the predictions and tips for 2021 that will change your sales strategy. Today's event is brought to you by Designhill, world's leading creative marketplace that caters to the creative needs of businesses and individuals alike, who can source high quality designs from professional designers and buy unique products created by independent artists. Through its print on demand marketplace called Print Shop by Designhill, you can also buy 50 plus unique products with thousands of artworks created by a world class community of independent artists. So, moving ahead, let me introduce our esteemed speakers for today. We have with us Andy Paul. Andy is the host of Sales Enablement Podcast. He is known to hold the best conversation in sales on his podcast with over 850 episodes and counting. He has written two award winning sales books, Zero Time Selling and Amp Up Your Sales, is ranked number 8 on LinkedIn list of top 50 global sales experts, and has also consulted with some of the biggest businesses in the world, including Square, Philips, Grubhub, and more, making him one of the leading voices in the sales industry today. Andy, would you like to say a quick hi to the audiences? You will have to unmute yourself.
Didn't realize I was muted. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, and thank you for that nice introduction.
Amazing to have you here. Up next, we have Cynthia Barnes. Cynthia is the founder of National Association of Women Sales Professionals, is a LinkedIn top sales influencer, a highly sought after keynote speaker, and a champion for women in sales. She is known for motivating others to feel confident and empowered. She lives by one motto: I'm in it to win it. Her exemplary 20-year track record as top 1% corporate producer and sales leader proves that you can accomplish what you set out to do and overcome any adversity come hell or high water if you're courageous, disciplined, and willing to put in the work. She specializes in women-centric sales training, women-centric professional development. She is helping women band together and level the playing field. She's also the author of Reach the Top 1%, a strategic game plan for warrior women in sales. Cynthia.
Wow, I feel like a star, like I'm on the Oprah Winfrey Show. Thank you so much for that marvelous introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to engaging with you. Thank you for having me.
Looking forward to. Next, we have Anita Nielsen. He's is actually another member from AWSP. Right? She serves as the board member there. She's the best-selling author of Beat the Bots: How Your Humanity Can Future-Proof Your Tech Sales Career, and the president of LDK Advisory Services LLC. As a sales enablement consultant and performance coach, she provides senior sales leaders with proven, customized sales optimization solutions that shape high-performance sales cultures and catalyze growth. Her vast knowledge and differentiating insights developed over a 20 plus year of career in B2B sales make her an invaluable strategic change agent for her clients seeking to exceed growth objectives. Anita is also committed to elevating women in sales and is a proud member of the Women Sales PROS. She also serves on the advisory board for the National Association of Women Sales Professionals. Anita.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for that introduction. I didn't even have to pay you for it.
Amazing. Up next, we have Ian Moores. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correct. He's the Chief Revenue Officer, One Up Sales, and he's also an industry cloud social influencer and is widely published on matters of cloud and sales leadership. He is called upon to blog and social influence by many global technology firms and was rated number one cloud influencer by Analytica. He's passionate about computing science 14 years, since 14 years, falling into sales at 20. He embraces sales as a skilled profession and continue to learn, is competitive and enjoy exceeding customer expectations. Jan.
Thank you, and I'm pleased to be on a panel with such respected peers. Really, really good to be here.
Thank you so much for being here today with us. Last but not the least, we have Tibor Shanto. Tibor has been a sales leader for over 25 years. Called a brilliant sales tactician, he helps sales team and organizations translate strategy to results through a focus on execution. Tibor has trained leading companies including Imperial Oil, Bell Canada, Business Development Bank, and others. His proactive prospecting program has been accredited by Canadian Professional Sales Association. In addition, Tibor is a Sales Hall of Fame inductee, co-author of the award-winning book called Shift: Harness the Trigger Events That Turn Prospects into Customers, MVP Social Selling Sales Pro Central 2020, Forbes.com voted top 30 salespeople in the world, Top Sales Management Association voted 50 most influential people in sales lead management, and Top Sales World, Top Sales and Marketing Blog Gold Medal winner. Oh my God. Tibor.
Well, like the others, I'm pleased to be on such a distinguished panel. And like the others, I hardly recognize myself after that introduction.
Absolute honor to have you here with us. Before we start the session, we have a couple of announcements to be made. We are giving away certificates to the attendees who would stick till the end of the session. You just can't miss on this chance, and so stay tuned till the end. Also, you can take the screenshot of this event, post it on your Twitter, use hashtag Designhill events, and tag Designhill DH and all our speakers whose Twitter handles are there in the chat box. One lucky winner will have a chance to win a print shop gift card worth $50. Also, we will be sharing an exclusive coupon code with everyone at the end of the session, using which you can avail 15% discount on Designhill contest service to build your brand. So please stay tuned. Now, before we start the session, let's quickly look at what Designhill is all about.
Looking to get your boss to remember your name? Head to the world's #1 creative marketplace, Designhill.
When my company promoted me to head up our latest real estate development project, I was excited, then anxious, then petrified. How was I going to hire the team, get the designs completed, and design beautiful presentation materials on our lean budget while impressing my bosses, some of whom are still learning my name?
Good job, Mitch.
My name's Lawrence. That's why I went to Designhill and got the design help I needed that fit within my company's brand guidelines. The process was simple. Designhill's design contest ensured I'd get a ton of results I'd love. Start by picking a number of designs that inspire you. This one's good, and that one. This one speaks to me. Then share some information about the project. Lastly, pick a package that fits your budget. Do you just want a logo, or do you want it all? Then, boom. I got more than 60 custom design options to choose from, as well as all the other graphic design assets I wanted. And it's all backed by Designhill's 100% money-back guarantee. If I don't find a design I like, I get my money back. You can't lose. Now I have what I need to make a splash in my meetings, with everything from business cards, pamphlets, posters, and more. It's real.
Let the world know it's real and build your brand with Designhill.
All right, that was all about Designhill, and now we are all set to start the session. To all the sales professionals, we are making a lot of money in this event today, so all eyes here. We will also be taking up questions during the session, so if you have any, please drop them in the questions tab on your screen. All right, so quickly jumping to the questions that we received from our registrants. Okay, the first and foremost and the most frequently asked question was about this new normal that we are in right now. And Anita, let me start this with you. As we move towards a post-pandemic state, how do you think the organizations, the companies, and the sales professional, transition and move from this conventional sales process to a virtual one, because there are no more business lunches and coffees happening. Do you think this virtual way of handling almost everything, including sales, will be the new normal and will last forever?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we get asked it a lot. I think probably everyone on this panel. I think that it's going to go back as much as the comfort around the pandemic is. I think, and it'll be mainly initially not new customers, but existing customers. I see that sales professionals are likely going to be able to reach out to existing customers with whom they already have a relationship and then go back to kind of the meeting face to face, and then ease into new prospects. I think there's going to be a lot of hesitation on the part of prospects for having face to face meetings, and so there's going to be a transition there. I don't think that we ever go back to as much face to face as we had, and not just because the customers, because the salespeople too. Pre-pandemic, it was tough to get salespeople on video in several of the clients I work with. And now they all are. So it's kind of like, should I drive 2 hours to meet that customer, or can I do it virtually? So I think both parties are going to want to take advantage of virtual when it's possible.
All right. Tibor, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, so, I tend to look at things from the prospecting view, and prospecting has always been virtual, so I sort of don't understand what all the noise is about.
Yeah.
Although I do think that there will be some differences, and I think there will be some industries that were, as Anita said, already moving towards more of a hybrid or more towards a virtual type of sale. But I think there's some businesses, and I have clients who probably seal the deal at dinner as opposed to in the formal meetings and so forth. And when you get into a more involved sale, I don't like the notion of complex, but when there's a lot of moving parts, I think there's a necessity for that human interaction that will come back. So I think there will be some that were naturally headed in that direction anyways, lower type of things that can be easily handled through e-commerce. But I would suspect anywhere where people like to use that word relationship, whatever it means, you're going to go back to face-to-face.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll add.
Yes.
I think people have sort of overestimated how much face-to-face selling was actually taking place pre-pandemic. And the fact is, even if somebody was in a field sales role, or nominally field, meaning they would travel to see customers occasionally, what would that be? Maybe 10% of their interactions with the buyers would be face-to-face, 15%. As long as I've been in sales back in the 80s and 90s. I mean, I like to say virtual selling started when Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. Virtual selling doesn't mean video. It means you're just not there face to face. Telephone selling is virtual selling. So, so much of what we do, I think, is virtual and has been virtual. Yeah, most of the face to face went away. I agree. Some will come back on those that are, I'll use the term complex, Tibor says involved, but we'll see some come back. But people should just keep in mind that the vast majority of our sales interactions, for the most part, unless you are specifically in a retail sales or something, were virtual already.
Right.
Well,
Right.
what I've seen happen is I'm actually seeing more of a customer's face than I probably was before, because a lot of it was phone. And what I'm finding now is people are more receptive to video. So rather than it being a phone call, we're jumping on like this. And here's the other beautiful thing, I think, is it's becoming more personal. We're in their homes. When have you ever been in your customer's home or your prospect's home, and their kids run in, and you get a conversation about something personal that you wouldn't have done before, and you build rapport that would never have happened. But how many times did you go into their office and see the kid's photo and discuss it? Right, really? But now when the kids run in, they go, "Oh, sorry, that's my little one. Oh, how's your little one?" It naturally drags you into a conversation of stuff that you wouldn't have before, which is rapport building. So I think there's some positives to take from this.
Right. Cynthia, I would like to ask this to you, that what is the most important thing to focus on in the world that we are living in, and to execute? What is the most important thing to focus on and execute?
I think the relationship building process is huge. I think in a world where you have a number of options and vendors to choose from, I think that in the sales process, it's important to know your prospects as well as you do your best friend. A lot of people have gotten away from, I think, the relationship building components of prospecting. And I think we need to focus on that. There's a strategy called the McKay 66 by I think it's Charles McKay, who actually says there are 66 things that you should know about your prospect before your competition does. And when you know those 66 things, you're able to develop rapport, like Ian says. You're in their homes. You know things about them. You can anticipate their wants and needs. And I think that as we develop a sales process that is virtual or in person, whatever we decide that we're going to perfect, We've got to maintain the foundation of building a strong relationship, because that is paramount. And you'll get to the point where your prospects will even say, okay, well, I want to be your customer. I don't care what I have to pay. I trust you because I know you. Just get it done. And that's what we want.
Exactly. Right, absolutely. With that, I will move on to the next question, and I will ask this to Ayan. A fat funnel doesn't always ensure an equally fat conversion. And, we could be cold calling a lot of people, collecting a lot of data. But, when it comes to streamlining and filtering all those contacts that we got through various mediums, outbound, inbound, how does one identify the best fitted accounts for their businesses and discard the rest?
Yeah, where do I start on this one? So I think, firstly, having gone through this with many businesses and discussions with people is, and I ask this of candidates when I'm interviewing them, particularly marketing people, is what is the persona? What's your persona you've sold to? Do you even understand what that means? Who is you, and not just at a customer level, but at an individual level. And number one is to understand that, right? Who, you can't target the whole universe. Who is your target universe? How can you narrow that down? For me, I always look as a sales leader is, what's the lowest hanging fruit? Who is the ideal customer? And does that give me enough of a target universe to go after to achieve the revenue goals that we have? Secondly, I think is getting sales and marketing absolutely aligned. And we may talk about that on other pieces here, but I was on a call the other evening with a number of sales leaders and talking about that whole piece. Is sales and too often, and I'm doing this recruiting a marketeer at the moment, and I'm talking about, I want the right leads. I don't just want leads. It isn't about, right, I want marketing to come in and I want you to generate lots of leads. I don't want that.
Right.
I want the right leads that fit the profile that will maximize the conversion rate. And I think too often there's a conflict between sales asks for lots of leads, marketing delivers lots of leads, and you've just created the issue of, well, if there's a volume of leads you get, sales complains about the quality and the conversion rate. Marketing then gets in the neck, well, we did what you asked us to do. It should be total alignment. What is it you're trying to get? And how do as a sales leader, I look for, how do I reduce the number of leads that marketing needs to give me? Not maximize it. How do I help them give me the right ones and fewer, so it increases the hit rate, and leads, not suspects? That is the other thing I have a bugbear about, of where people get this language confused, and I'll take input from the others if you disagree, where people say, oh, that's a lead. Well, what makes that a lead? Because that to me is that's someone who meets all the criteria that I could sell to them and they fit the profile. And how many times have I said, no, it's a suspect. It's a suspect, and I've just qualified it out in 5 seconds. So how much time are we wasting? So I think it's down to what is agreeing on the right language that defines what things are, and then agreeing some of the basic facts and getting it right. It's not rocket science, but too many people are just getting all that stuff wrong. That's my opinion.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please.
There is a formula in marketing called M times M equals R. And if you go back to 9th grade algebra, in any algebraic equation, if anything is set to 0, the whole thing is bust. So your first M is your message. What do you say to your target market to get them to stop the scroll? Your second M is your media. Where do you put that highly targeted message to make them jump up and say, I want to learn more? And your R in M times M equals R is your results. So you could have the best graphic design team creating the best graphics, but if your message doesn't get them to stop the scroll, then your results are going to be 0. The only way, to Ian's point, to get that message, to get them to stop the scroll, is if you know your target market with granularity and specificity. And the only way that you can do that is to know the demographics and the psychographics, the who they are and the why they buy. If you don't have that in alignment, and if you don't talk to marketing, then all of the suspects that you give to the sales department are going to be bust.
Right. Tibor?
So again, I think that everything everybody said, I would agree with, but I would suggest that it applies to sort of a small end of the market, and that is that the actively looking prospect. Because the people who are doing the scrolling, who Cynthia mentioned, address that keyboard on their own. There was nothing that anybody did to prompt them to come there. I tend to focus more on the larger group of the market segment, which is status quo, because my goal is to get with them early. And not so much, as I mentioned, I'm not a relationship guy, but I want to be their emotional favorite. I want to be their go-to. So borrowing from marketing, I spend a lot of time with them during the awareness and consideration stage. So when they switch gear into decision, I can get them. A lot of discussion that I'm hearing, not only here, but elsewhere, seems to focus on those active buyers where they're interacting with your social media, they're interacting with Google and so on. That's great, but that's where everybody goes. And it becomes a question of where do you discount? How do you discount? And I think there's a question around that. But if I can get somebody before they're even thinking about it, before they even think about the things that most salespeople talk about, which is pains and needs and problems, and I can address them on where they're trying to go from a business point of view, as they move towards the purchase, I'll have them. So those will be in my pipeline. Statistically, I don't worry about it from the same degree of conversion, because as long as they continue to interact with me and give me next steps, in a sense, that's small bits of conversion. So I think it's great to have this discussion, but you're missing about 90% of the market.
Absolutely, I agree completely. Please feel free to bug in every time, in between, in case if you have an opinion to add. I might not, direct each and every time to each and every speaker, but please feel free to, add your opinions. And with that, I am, getting to the next question, which is about consumer behavior. So, pandemic ensured that, the consumer behaved in a certain way. They obviously, they are much more warier of their spending. They want to spend less. There are less shopping visits. There's this kind of overstocking of things at home. So it has definitely changed, the consumer behavior. The shopping frequency has reduced. There is a surge in e-commerce market as well. How do you think this has impacted or will impact different sectors or type of sales? And how should companies prepare for adapting to this new normal and adapt fast? Cynthia, can we start with you?
I think if 2020 and the pandemic has taught us anything, it is that we must be flexible, and even more than flexible, adaptable. And we must learn to pivot in any situation. So I think learning, first of all, you have to learn how to be adaptable. And being adaptable also means that you learn to anticipate trends and you learn to anticipate behaviors. And I can't stress enough, if you know your target market and you've tapped into your target market, their psychographics, you can then listen to them. You know where to go. You know which LinkedIn groups to go to listen to what they're talking about. You have conversations with customers and prospects, and you can become more adaptable and flexible and anticipate what their needs are going to be. And then you become the rock star, so to speak, because you now said, oh, I know where you're going, Mr. or Miss Prospect, and I can help you get there.
That's amazing. That's Andy. Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, I would add to that. I think that we're going to see in the next couple of years, in regards to specifically the question you're asking, was most predictions are right now we're going to see an economic boom, right? I mean, 2020, surprisingly, despite the pandemic, was one of the biggest years in terms of new enterprise formation in the United States. So there's been a tremendous amount of new business activity in terms of business formation. Hopefully that will lead to growth. I think the big thing is I think our prospects are going to be confronted with more noise than ever, coming from so many more sources. And so I think that becomes the big challenge in the next couple of years. And I think it sort of relates to what Tibor was talking about in terms of how you go out and try to prospect and develop new business. Is if you're just going to be waiting for inbound, then that's going to be a little problematic for you, unless you also supplement it with some proactive outbound that's targeting the right accounts that fit your ICP, that you're being proactive with well before they've expressed a specific need. So I know that's big trend. You can lots of tools, 6 Sense, others that talk about market, in market buyer intent, useful data to have. But I'm with Tibor. I'd suggest don't wait for that.
Absolutely. Ian, do you want to add to that before we move on to the next question?
The only thing I'd really supplement is I talk the phrase change and change again. this isn't a one-time change and pivot that we've just seen. This is you now need to be more adaptable than ever. And I think we're seeing that in sales with the emergence of lots of new, I think there's one place that spend is going on, right? It is sales enablement technology. It's going through the roof because people are trying to figure out how do they pivot, how do they change their behavior, how do they interact with the customer and engage with them in a continually smarter way. And I don't think that's going to go away. I think people are seeing this as a one-time event. I think is, well, great, COVID, deal with COVID. What's around the corner? People are changing. The environment we work in changed. Technology is changing. So I think it's about change and change again. You've got to become adaptable and not think you've made one big change and that's it for the next 5 years. That's the biggie I think people aren't seeing.
And I think this notion of new normal is sort of odd again, because there's always, every day is a new normal, right? And before we had COVID, everybody was praising the disruptors because they were trying to. So if we go back to, I forget how to pronounce the fellow's name, Heraclides or what have you, the only constant is change. So salespeople should be at the tip of that. So, I don't know why we spend so much time talking about change. We should be driving it.
Absolutely. So being proactive is the key, and I'm hoping all the attendees are making notes of these invaluable tips and advice. Moving on to the next question. It's actually in continuation of the last one. And Anita, let's start this with you. So we discussed that, customers are no more cash cows and they are a lot warier of their spending. They are much more aware today. The only way to attract them and push them towards making a purchasing decision is to convince them you prioritize their satisfaction over your profit. I mean, it might sound like a big line, but does this always mean you have to lower the price of your product and retain that customer as is? Because we got a lot of questions on those lines that, retaining a customers. Have had a lot of salespeople continuously lower the price just to, have customers in their pipeline. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think this goes to this idea of value selling, right? Customers I don't think they were cash cows before and are poor now. I think they are wary. I agree with that. And what a sales professional should be doing is understanding, just like in any other environment, what's making them wary. What is it that they're looking for? Where is that challenge? Where is that pain? And value is in the eye of that customer. So the salesperson has to be able to get to what value means specifically to that person. Once you have that, and then you're able to make it clear, then the chances of them making a buying decision in your favor at the price you've established are much higher, not just because of trust and rapport, but because you've targeted not just that company that you're selling to, but that human that you're selling to. And I think that makes a big difference. You have to understand what's going to make them comfortable, what's going to make them feel safe, how does this benefit them? And it's true, though, you have to focus on their satisfaction. Absolutely.
Right. So let's not use the word cash cows, but pandemic has had a lot of people also lose their jobs, and obviously there was less amount of cash flows in every household. That's what the concern of all these registrants who are sales professionals as well. That if there is no money in their hands, how would they probably buy a product? It's about that as well. And that's when they had to compromise Yes,
building on
Anita's point, tough, though, if they don't have the money. Go ahead.
No, please.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if they don't have the money, that's something that we should be assessing early on in terms of budget, right? And then determining what do they have the budget for and selling accordingly. If there's no budget, you build a relationship, you establish your credibility, you create value so that when there is budget, you're the person they're going to call.
All right.
Building on the 2 points from Anita and Andy, I think there is going to be budget, because I do agree with Andy that there's probably going to be a boom. Hopefully it won't be followed by a depression like it did in the last century, but I'm going to be around for the boom. So, I think the other side of it, so I think there will be budget and there will be spending, and people are assessing some of the trends and anticipating where those trends will go in the next 4 or 5 years. But, the other side of, everything has two sides. So rather than lowering the price, why not just increase the value? And I think, again, if you have clear definitions for value based on experience and so on, it's not easy, but that's what salespeople get paid for, is to build the value side as opposed to just hold the line on discounts.
Yeah, and I think fundamentally we're talking, I heard the word product, we should be talking outcomes, right? It's not, people don't buy a product, they buy the outcome that it gives them. And if the outcome's good enough, I don't care if they've got a budget, they'll find one. If it justifies it enough, budget gets created. I think you were talking about, to or Andy, about creating the need. If you create the need with the value, people create projects, they create value, they create budget.
Yeah, it's been that way for a long time. There was a study that came out about 10 years ago that found that in business, and this is talking about business, not consumers, but in business, that only about 20% of their major purchases are budgeted at the beginning of the year. I mean, they have budget set aside, but they don't have it specifically designated for specific projects. People come in, find a need, justify the need, find the value and the outcome that is desired, and they find budget for it, just as Ian said.
And what they do have at the beginning of the year is objectives. So if you can align with those objectives and drive them, as Ian says, 100% budget is created. You know, if I had $1 for every VP that said they have no budget that subsequently wrote me a check, I probably could work a lot less.
And do you know what? One of the fundamentals that annoys me is we get these sales processes, which you've got to find the budget, right? What's your budget? Why are you having that? So that says you only talk to a customer when they're buying, to your point. Well, why you know, I talk to people, oh, we're not buying anything now. I don't care. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I want a conversation to understand things. I might sell you something in 2 years' time, but do you only talk to people when you're buying? Well, let's have a conversation then.
Yeah, I think it's a constantly maintaining and nurturing that relationship, even if you know that there's no budget. Find out early on and then determine, you know, what degree do I need to engage with this prospect? I mean, if someone's buying, then you have to get a lot more focused and bring in your technical resources and all of those types of things. Well, if it's somebody who has stated clearly they're not going to buy, you pace yourself on how you show that value. And I think you have to lean a lot more on that trust and that rapport, because that's what's going to help them see that they need something, and then they will find the budget. I believe that, you know, if you need something enough and you find it valuable enough, you will find the budget. So it's on the salesperson to have the right conversations to help them see undoubted value, and then they'll find the money.
But I think it speaks to something more fundamental, though, too, that is implicit in everything that everybody's saying, is that, you know, sales these days tend to be so a little more transaction oriented, as opposed to my job is I'm trying to build a network of people that over time and, you know, could potentially become customers, right? I'm investing for today, I'm investing for tomorrow, I'm investing for 2 years. You know, it's been mentioned multiple times, Ian and Tibor. And that perspective seems to be lacking more and more in sales forces today, where
Yes,
again, a
yeah.
little more transactional rather than saying, I'm building something that's gonna be with me for my entire career, a network.
Amazing. To my attendees who are there on the chat box, please do not forget to follow our speakers. Their social media handles are there. I'm sure they would be happy to help you with any question that you might have. And please don't lose the hope, because I could see in the questions that, you know, they were so demotivated in a way. But you know, these guys are there to, you know, boost up your confidence. And I'm also the last person to, you know, to be in the sales, but I'm trying my best to get there somewhere. So moving on to the next question, Cynthia, let's start this with you. Early on, you talked about, you know, the messaging and the medium of your company, the goal, your product, and we have seen the importance of social media marketing has gone many levels up. It is where, you know, you showcase your product, you tell them what it is about, and, you know, it is a place to engage and converse with them, so that it possibly convert into a customer as well. So what do you think, you know, is the role of social media today, especially in containing the pipeline and leads? But at the same time, we also see that social media is a little overdone, especially in the pandemic. You know, everyone was online, and, you know, if I talk about Instagram, reels came into action. A lot of small businesses took place. So what do you have to say about it? What are the possible bottlenecks that could cause breakage or frustration for your customers or salespeople, and how to handle it?
I think the number one mistake that people make with social selling is to promote too much.
Right.
And there has to be a good mix of 1/3 promotion, 1/3 inspiration, and then 1/3 of educate and inform. And the goal that we have at NAWSP, we had to bootstrap our efforts in the beginning because we didn't have VC backing. It was, how do we position ourselves as the obvious choice by answering those 8 fundamental questions about who is NAWSP? Do I have trouble trying, if I'm a woman, trying to get to the top 1%? We're answering those questions. We're educating, we're informing them. Occasionally we will promote, NAWSP is offering this webinar or this promotion. However, we engage with our target market so that when they are ready to join an association and reach the top 1%, NAWSP is the obvious choice. And that, I think, has been the secret to our success, is the constant posting every single day, being top of mind, getting connections, engaging with people, so that when companies like Google, Oracle, Adobe say we want to tap into a market of women sales professionals, who do they go to? NAWSP, because we've taught them how to get to the top 1%. And we've also taught our sponsors, here's how you recruit and retain the top 1%.
Amazing. That was an amazing recipe. I mean, I love that 1/3 nurturing, and I love that. Absolutely. Anita, over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to chime in. I think one of the beautiful things, and NAWSP is really good at this, is even when you're doing promotion, you're creating value in that moment, right? So you're in there saying not just, oh, do this, this, and this, come sign in, register, but these are the 3 points that we're going to be talking about. If you can't join live, register. So it's not just, shamelessly promoting, it's more focused on your target audience and what value, what value they're going to gain, what challenges of theirs they're going to find answers to or guidance on. And I think that's the difference between just promoting for promotion's sake and promoting to help address a need in that target audience, and that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, I think to build on Cynthia's point is that I don't think social media, now specifically deal with LinkedIn, was overdone the last year. I think it was just done poorly, and that's really the distinction.
Right word, yes, that's the right word.
And increasingly now, for individual salespeople, this ability to differentiate yourself and build your personal brand online is becoming increasingly paramount. The Rain Group did a study. They talked about surveyed, I don't know, a couple thousand buyers. 82% of buyers look up the seller on LinkedIn before they speak with them for the first time. Right. So this is really crucial to get that right. So if you're just purely pitching, as Cynthia said, and someone looks at your history and what you're doing, your activity, you're not going to be standing out. But if you've got that mix of education, if you're giving to get the right philosophy going forward on how you use social media, build your network, as we talked about before you need it, which is part of the rule there, then you have a better chance of standing out.
And I think, Andy, even more today, because I've said this, if we're going to visit someone in the old world, right, where they're running from one meeting room to another, they come to reception, whatever, have they really checked you beforehand? But today we're all jumping on things like this, and I've got a screen here and a screen here. I can look you up while we're talking, right? So it's more likely to happen today than ever before. And I think the other mistake people are making in this social selling, there's many, right? They think LinkedIn Navigator equals social selling and that's it. But am I not right in that selling is not about talking, it's about listening and understanding, right? Well, on social media, how many people listen and understand? I get people trying to sell me social selling training day in, day out, right? And the fact they haven't read and looked at my profile and the content that I've shared and what I do and figured out I'm not a customer for your social selling training tells me you don't do social selling because you haven't done the listening first.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should call it social listening, not social selling. Absolutely. Yeah, my favorite one of those, Ian, is I had somebody about a year ago reach out to me on LinkedIn and thought, you'd be an ideal candidate to start a podcast. I was like, you realize I've had over 800 episodes already.
They were right.
Good idea. Thanks.
Right, yeah. Just sort of missed a little detail.
Right. So it's about social listening. Amazing. So I think it's a good time to take a mid-roll. We're kind of a little ahead of the time, but it's okay. I hope everyone is enjoying the session. But before we move forward, I would like to give a quick shout out to Designhill, was leading creative marketplace for organizing this event. Let's take a quick short break and keep this interesting conversation going on.
I've always been creative and always been an artist. As a young girl, I used to paint rocks and I used to sell them for a quarter on the street. And I just fell in love with it. It just grew into a passion of mine. I started looking on the web and I came across Designhill, and they had a design contest to design a logo, and I entered it and I won. And I was like, oh, this is really great. I can pick and choose what type of logos or design projects I want to work on. And it allows me to be creative, keep my hands, with my tools and working. So it's kind of nice. It's really easy to use. You can scroll through the projects and there's sections that you could go by. It's really easy. There's a few clients who have come back to use the one-on-one projects. There's one client in particular, she owns a vintage shop, and I designed her logo, and she came back. She needed a design for a flyer, and she really liked the illustrations that I did for her, so she came back a couple of times with projects. I would recommend it, especially if you're a designer that's starting out and you want to learn from other designers, seasoned designers. It's a place to keep in the game and keep using your tools. It makes me feel great, and it kind of confirms that I should be doing this. And I love to see logos that I've designed out, and proud of that. And I think that the clients are so happy that their logo represents what they do and makes them look good. It's a collaboration. It's good for me, and it's definitely good for them.
All right, we are back again. To the attendees, please ask your questions in the questions tab and not in chat because they can get lost there. We will make sure that all your questions are answered. And moving ahead, we were talking about building your brand online and the importance of it. The next question is about that only. It is imperative to have a digital presence these days, and we also have a Google update coming in May 2021. I did my little research about this. This is based on Core Web Vitals, which will measure site load time, interactivity, and content stability. It will start to impact the overall search ranking. I'm talking about Google. Now, how do the businesses who were not present on the internet cope up with this entirely alien thing? What would be your suggestions? Andy, can we start with you?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not an expert on on Google and search rankings by any stretch of imagination. I mean, I think that the question within the question was, how is business that was not present on the internet? I mean, that's just that's sort of the fundamental issue right there, right? How did you get this far into 2021 and not have even a small presence online? So, if you are a small business and that's the case, there's lots of very easy to use resources to build a website, just to start a web presence. Urge you to search those out. Some of the names escape me right now, but I mean, it's maybe somebody else can add more value to that question than I can.
Yeah.
Like Andy, it's not something that I look at and so forth, but I think the one opinion I would add is that it should be part and parcel of something else. I think that strictly relying on that as a means of changing the reality going on the web and so forth is not enough. And I think the most successful businesses align their sort of brick and mortar presence and reality with their online stuff. So it needs to be more consistent than most people think.
All right, not an issue. Does anyone else want to add, Cynthia, Anita, or Ann?
We use We use the internet strictly as to provide enough information to make you say, I want to learn more. It lends credibility when we have an internet presence. We make sure that our LinkedIn pages are SEO optimized, because chances are, because Yahoo, Bing, and Google crawl LinkedIn profiles, chances are that my LinkedIn profile will pop before NAWSP's page does. So we make sure that the About section is fully SEO optimized, our headlines are optimized, our experience sections are SEO optimized, so that people can get enough information to say, you know what, I want to learn more. And then on our page, there's a section, if you'd like to learn more, hop on a call with one of us. Because we can't negate the fact that the selling process is done person to person. We never want to say, well, you can just go ahead and buy from the web. That's not what it's for. It's a gateway to get in touch with the live person. You can't take the human aspect, and Anita is the one that I would defer to on this. You can't take the human aspect out of the selling process. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. And like, I would never go to a platform and say, I want a designer, without actually talking with the designer to talk about our brand, the feel that we want, the engagement that we want. So Anita, I'd love to have your thoughts on the role that, yes, the internet is important to find you, but yet, can you talk about the human aspect of buying?
Yeah, I love that. And I think you're exactly right. So the internet and your presence on the internet is there to get people to understand a little bit better about you, learn your personal brand, but ultimately, like Cynthia said, want to engage with you. I've been saying that business to business sales is really human to human sales. Like a business, a corporation, a building can't buy from a building, right? Like, it's just doesn't make sense. But you are speaking with one or more buyers. Who are your buyers? Are they going to get to you based on what they're seeing about you on the internet? And then once they do, it's critical that you, as a human being, reach out to them and then truly understand what their need is. And I think sometimes it gets lost that, so many things can be done transactionally on the web, and that's true. But when you're talking about, major purchases, and, somebody said the word complex or whatever, but it's those things that you really do require that guidance, and your customers need it, even if they don't think they need it, by the way, and they're online doing chat and et cetera. Find a way to call them. Right. And get them engaged in that conversation, because they may not even know what they need. And you may be able to give them insight. So technology is incredible, but technology is only as good as the people who wield it. Right. So if I'm a company and I've got a presence out there, what good is it doing to me if I'm not able to serve my customers as its means to an end?
Yeah, I was going to, you sort of jump where I was going. It's about conversations, right? And it's about the personal brand that Andy spoke about. Not just the company website. And when I get salespeople come to me, I watch salespeople's behavior on this, and they'll talk about the company name. We're trying to sell to these. I've got this opportunity, and da 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 da. And the first thing I go is, well, who are you talking to? Great. And then they want to tell me, and I've had a good conversation, and they want to move on. It's like, slow down. And anyone that's worked for me will recognize this. The first thing I do is say, no, stop. Give me the names. I want to look up the people that you're talking to, and start to understand the people who are going to make the decisions or influence the decisions, and who are they, and do I know someone who's connected to them? Did they used to go to the same school or college, or whatever it is? It's the human that's signing that order at some point, not a machine.
That's right.
So all that other stuff you're telling me is great, but slow down. Who is the person? Oh, it's John Smith. Great. And then off they go. No. Wait, I haven't looked him up yet. Which John Smith? And how much engagement have you had? And then the other piece I add into that is, what engagement have you had? Is it a conversation or a communication? And anyone that's listening on anything will hear, this is one of my bugbears. A communication is different to a conversation. An email, a WhatsApp, or whatever is a communication. It has its place, but it is different to I actually spoke with them and heard their reaction and their tone and etc. Right? And that I think we're losing. And I think in this remote world, that is one of the big things I'm seeing as a negative. Too many people are missing the conversation and going the lazy route because they can.
Well, Ian, it sounds like you don't have do you have teenage kids?
No, I've got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, my kids were adults at this point, but yeah, I'll say, did you talk to your brother? Oh yeah, I did. No, they didn't talk to their brother. They had a text interaction, right? This is a generational thing.
It is.
Which is why, Andy, when I get a salesperson, I've said this on others, but they say, "Oh yeah, I chatted to them." When you say chatted, what do you mean? Oh, we exchanged emails. I always question, I encourage everyone today, ask that question. Don't assume. That's what salespeople do, right? Now you're doing it as a sales leader. When they say that, question what they mean by it, and often you're going to find it was a communication. Now you need to think about, well, what did you get from that communication? It wasn't a conversation.
Yep. Agree 100%.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I
I
love
love that. All right. So moving on to the next question, let's talk a bit about the internal coordination between the teams. You know, the importance of virtually reaching out prospects is of utmost importance, and their regular tracking becomes, a little difficult. It is as well important, and so is the role of marketing team. How do you think companies should optimize this coordination within the team as well as with the prospects in terms of pitching straightforward solutions without being too pushy as a lead? Tibor, can we start with you?
Yeah, so I look at the relationship between marketing and sales as marketing is providing air cover for the ground troops that is sales. So if you look at that, what one slight mistake can, end up in friendly fire, as it were. So I think that coordination, that constant communication has to take place. And I think companies can do a better job to get salespeople to actually hold up their end of the bargain. Because again, just the continuous effort to try and get salespeople to take the conversation that Ian mentioned and actually record it in a CRM so marketing can understand what the market is thinking in real time, or at least in near real time. So I think that much like the military, there has to be one commander, there has to be a strategy and a tactical plan to execute that strategy, and then there has to be coordination between all the people that are going to have contact with the customer. And I also, just to add, and I also find it odd that customer success doesn't come into the process until after the signature. In the old days, before apps, we used to introduce the customer support team around the time of the proposal so the customer can actually get comfortable with what we're going to deliver and not call the salesperson for every little thing and let the salespeople sell and the professionals look after success.
Well, I think the successful companies do exactly that, Tibor. I mean, they do bring customer success in early.
Just a lot of companies are not successful in that way.
Well, a lot of companies aren't successful. That's exactly right.
That's right.
Yeah, I think one of the major trends we're seeing, especially in sales organizations, is this unified revenue operations function where you're getting sales and marketing reporting to the same leader. And then everybody's being tasked with the same goals, and everything's sort of being aligned around revenue in a much more comprehensive way than it's been before. And especially given sort of the growth of all the data we have around sales and around our customers, is then everybody's sort of operating from the same source of truth in terms of how they look at the marketplace. So, that may not apply to the audience today, but something to think about is rather than keeping sales and marketing separated into silos, is can you actually unify them in a way that makes sense organizationally? You're going to have politics that affects it because people don't want to give up power. But you should be looking at revenue from a different lens these days.
Yeah, and one interesting phenomenon I see is that sometimes I look at marketing, and oftentimes I think it works well when marketing and sales kind of understand their role in terms of messaging and communication. For example, marketing is talking about the big story about the company and about the company's direction and the products, and salespeople, it's their job to contextualize all of that. Right, so you need both of them. But if you don't have, if marketing doesn't recognize or understand that the salesperson is taking that story and making it that customer story, then we have a challenge, because sometimes messaging will come down from marketing and you're just like, this is not going to apply to my customers. And I've seen that's a lot of the contention that I see between sales and marketing comes from there. And back to everyone's point now, if they're more in the same organization for revenue, it helps alleviate that. You just know your role and be comfortable that the other person's doing what they're supposed to do.
Let me throw this in. What's wrong with getting giving marketing visibility of what the salespeople do in front of the customer and opening their eyes, right? Because that's the problem. It's not that they're doing stuff wrong on purpose, but often they've got no visibility of what's wrong. They're getting someone telling them and give them context. You know, why can't they speak to a customer? Why can't they be involved? And I think one of you said about recorded calls. Well, often today I record a demo to a customer because it's a value to them. I say, do you mind if I record this? Because I can send it, you show colleagues. Well, that's great, because now I can show that to others. You can see the whole interaction in this video world and learn from that of, oh, I didn't realize that's how they reacted, or this is what they saw, or that, it's highly valuable, and we've got the tools to do it.
Well, the tools, that's the point.
Yeah, it's wonderful when marketing wants to do it. Yeah, sorry, Andy.
Yeah, what I was going to say is the tools do exist. Yeah, platform like Ring DNA where you can record calls, your conversational intelligence. Right. Marketing needs to invest time to listen to those calls because they are there. You can use the analytic engine to search for keywords and pull out clips that are relevant to what you want to learn about. Yeah. So it's never been easier for marketing. If the organization's invested in the right tools, it's never been easier for marketing to understand and hear the voice of the customer on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And vice versa, right? So the sales team needs to better understand what marketing is up to as well, right? Like how do those tools help them, or ultimately what tools are they using? And, it's relationship at the end of the day, I believe, to get that alignment between sales and marketing. And when there's trust, then there's no issue with bringing a marketing person on a ride along, right? Or even just letting them listen to the calls. But unfortunately, I hope I'm a minority here, but most companies just don't even have that level of trust. And again, that alignment within an organization and not siloed sales and marketing, I think that goes a long way to that.
Well, it's because the objectives aren't aligned.
That's right.
Absolutely. I'm in digital marketing and I absolutely know what these conversations are all about, the communication part of it. We do go through it every day. Yes, it's a fight on a daily basis, but at the end of it, we do come together when it's about, serving a customer and giving them the best. So, guys, there are no questions. Were there any questions in the chat box, Harshita? If there were, can you please direct them to the questions tab? Because I see a lot of conversations happening in the chat box, but no questions on the questions tab. So please write your questions there. My next question would be to Cynthia. We have been reading how creativity is the new sales hack in 2021. But it doesn't seem all that actionable. What are these articles and blogs trying to imply when they say the salespeople need to get creative? More so when most of the sales pitches are so refined and straight to the point. How does one get creative, and how does one justify that creativity in sales?
I think creativity comes from listening to the voice of the customer, finding out exactly what your customer wants. You can't create a pitch, you can't create a presentation without knowing what your ideal customer wants from your service, from you, and from your company. So the creativity comes from listening. You can't create anything without listening. And it's like walking in the door backwards. You go and you create something. It's like creating a company and say, I have this widget and I want the widget to sell. But if you haven't listened to your customer or your ideal prospect or your ideal buyer, and you haven't had someone tell you that your baby is ugly, then you will create a widget that no one will buy. So, yeah, go ahead, Tibor.
Well, I was going to say, but what precedes the listening is a quality question. And I agree with your point, Cynthia, that, that has to be the focus of the salespeople. And I look at sales as sort of being like a game of Jeopardy. You know the answer you want, so you have to come up with the right question, because that's, right. They give you the answer at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So I think the first sales book that everybody should go out and buy, other than the people on this panel, is the 10-Day MBA. Because salespeople don't know how to talk to business people. They don't know what sort of things they think about. They don't know how they process decisions. And therefore, most of the things that the average salesperson says is foreign to most, it's Greek to most leaders, company leaders, and so on. But if they went out and bought the 10-day MBA, they can actually understand the type of things, the kind of process that they're thinking about, and so on, and begin to align everything that's been said earlier in terms of messaging and this and that to specifically what that individual is thinking about in context, to Anita's point, of the broader decision and the broader purchase that's being made. So I think listening is great, but if you're not answering the right question, it's a lot of muzak that's coming back.
All right, so I'll take a spin on that, though. I mean, I agree that I've recommended that book many times to young and new salespeople to start developing some acumen, if you will. But I'm going to build on both points of what you're saying, Tibor, and what Cynthia was saying. Is I think the most important thing that people have to get right, and maybe the creativity or the hack for 2021, is understanding. And so, the follow-on to listening is understanding. And what we do is we train sellers to go in, and a little bit to your point, Tibor, is they come in and expecting a certain answer to a question. And therefore, they sort of suspend their curiosity and don't pursue beyond the first question to really understand the buyer, understand the magnitude of the problem they're trying to solve, understand the outcomes they're trying to achieve. And so we sort of almost train this understanding out of a generation of sellers, and we need to bring it back in. It's you have to ask the impact questions, you have to listen, but then you need to make sure you understand before you move on. And this is, quite honestly, this is the way that I think most of us learned and developed our own business acumen, was by asking questions of buyers we were talking to, and keep asking questions so we really understood exactly what it was they were trying to achieve or what their problems were. And based on that, that's how we got smart, and that's how we developed our acumen. And sellers can do the same thing today. They should read this book. I agree, this 10-day MBA, have it as a reference. But if you want to develop your acumen, it's all based on understanding, and that's in your hands.
Yeah, and Andy,
I love that. And not only
send the small kids in, right? Because my small children constantly, no matter what the answer I give is why.
Yep.
Give an answer. And why? And where? What? It's like layer upon layer. How many salespeople? And I look for this when I interview salespeople. Is I don't want all the clever stuff. I just want, how good are your questions? When I say something, how much do you then say? Help me understand that. They want to move to the next one instead of go that way.
Yep.
It's
Absolutely.
not rocket science, right? It's Yeah,
and this one's near and dear to my heart. So it's like, you do your research, you ask those powerful questions. And what I'll say, though, is the questions should also allow you to get information from the customer that maybe an average salesperson wouldn't get. So what I like to call high impact questions are things that are going to let the emotion seep in to the conversation, right? So if you ask someone, a bigger question, you'll hear and see what the politics of the company are. You'll kind of get a feel for how well they think they're doing. And that emotion is what really drives the buying decision ultimately. And you've got to attack that side as well. And you have to understand the emotional drivers as well as that business aspect of it.
Absolutely. And Cynthia, thank you so much. This is so nice of you to be sharing all these amazing links to the books. And everyone, actually, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
You'll
Thanks,
get my commission
Cynthia.
on that.
All right. So I will be asking the last question for today's session. And so a lot of, the majority of business community at Designhill, they are early age startups. They are, they have just started out. A lot of them started before the pandemic happened. So what would be your advice to these first-time entrepreneurs who had just started before the pandemic and then kind of lost, path midway, mentally as well? I mean, I'm sure that, a lot of things came to halt, but it was more on the, the mental side that, it affected us in a big way. So what would be your advice to them? Andy?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Look at my own experience. I started my company back in the recession of 2000, when the tech bubble had burst, and I was trying to sell my services to tech companies, and it was a matter of getting very precise about what problem I could solve. And so I had to, instead of being very broad-based, I had to become much more niche-focused in terms of the types of companies that I was going to talk to and the types of services I can provide. And that's sort of counterintuitive because you think that you need to be more flexible, more adaptable, more broad-based, when time's a little uncertain. And actually, I believe it's the opposite, is you want to get more focused. So what are the types of companies that are best suited for the types of services you can provide? What specifically are the problems that you can solve and the outcomes you can help them achieve? And just be as narrowly focused as possible.
And an example of that, if you look at some of the most successful companies, what they do at the start of the year is they shrink the territories to create that focus for the salesperson. So rather than aspiring towards the fringe, you get them to focus and better understand and better communicate with that segment of the market.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Cynthia, last thoughts from you for these early age startups?
I think the best advice I got early in my business, and I think it transcends all types of environments, is, and I can't specify this or stress this enough, is to get crystal clear on who your ideal customer is. Because if you try to market to everyone, you will get no one. I would much rather, I think someone said it, I think Tibor said this earlier, or maybe Ian said that I'd rather have 3 highly qualified, ready to engage prospects than to have 300 people that I have to sift through and I have to qualify. When you create messaging that attracts the right prospect and repels the wrong prospect, that's when the magic happens.
All right. Ian.
Yeah, I've got no magic answer for people in that I was thinking as the others were speaking. I'm glad I wasn't the first one at being put on the spot for this question. The one I think about is being prepared to stop. Sometimes I think people just keep going no matter what. The tenacity is a valuable asset, but sometimes letting go of something or stopping doing something is hard because, and we've all been there, right? We've all chased a prospect where you've invested so much time and effort, you've already buried yourself, a little bit more won't hurt, and you keep going, I'm going to go to the end now because I cannot draw the line. Sometimes being prepared to, other people are telling you sometimes stop, being prepared to stop the effort and walk away from something, whatever that might be. Stop, start, continue. You can't keep doing everything. Right. I think that's the valuable one. It's the hard one to handle yourself. Sometimes you need someone else to tell you that and to listen. That would be my advice.
But I think we set salespeople up for that because we keep telling them to qualify, right? And human beings tend to find what they set out to look for. So I think that can easily be resolved if we told them to go out and disqualify all the garbage, and what's left is the workable stuff. But they think their manager wants them to come back with qualified opportunities as opposed to real opportunities.
And I think that as business owners, it's important for us to create ourselves as subject matter experts, as that thought leader, as someone so valuable that people have to come to us to get it. That prevents a lot of that chasing. My cousin Tracy in Oakland, California says, Cynthia, you chase all these prospects and you chase them and you chase them and you chase them. And you spend a lot of time wasting time. And she said, what happens if you were to take the position and create content that shows them that you are the one to be chased, to be so valuable? It's like in the safari where there's only one watering hole for miles. All the animals have to come to that watering hole because it is the only watering hole for miles. So what if you were the water? And as I tell members, be the water. Be something or someone so valuable that people have to seek you out and then provide that value that they're looking for. And as Tracy in Oakland, California says, in this family, Cynthia, we don't chase anybody or anything. We don't even chase our whiskey.
Amazing.
Love it.
Amazing. All right. Anita, last thoughts from you before we wrap up?
I think it's been a great conversation today. I think one of the things that has come through time and again is this idea of value. And what I would say is that you can't create personalized value unless you really ask the questions that help you understand the logic and the emotion that that customer has and will drive the buying decision. And so once you know what they need, which is what people were talking about, is understanding, now you create a personalized value proposition for that individual. And then you've got the ability to get them to make that buying decision in your favor. It has to matter to them and it has to matter to the company. You have to be crystal clear on how you deliver that message.
Amazing, amazing. So this actually brings us to the end of this wonderful session. This was indeed a value bag session, although there's a lot more that we could have discussed. Unfortunately, we're limited by time here. We've actually exceeded the time by almost 13, 14 minutes. I hope you guys loved this session. Once again, I would like to thank each one of you, each one of our panelists for taking out the time to be a part of this event. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Amazing,
Thank
amazing.
you. Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
But to the attendees and to our audiences, this is not where it ends. We have a lot more events lined up for you in the coming days. So if you guys are interested and haven't registered yet, I am putting the link of our event section in the chat box where you can find all our upcoming events. You can please go there and register for yourself. To stay updated with events like these, you can follow us on our LinkedIn page. You can also give us suggestions on the topics you would like us to cover and speakers you want us to host. We are dropping the link of our LinkedIn page in chat box again. To watch the session and other such wonderful events, subscribe to our event section or visit our official YouTube channel, Designhill, where you can find the recordings of all our sessions. The link will be right there in the chat box. For all the business owners who are listening to this and wish to source high quality graphic designs and build their brand today, visit designhill.com. Also, we have recently launched a DIY creative tool called Designhill Studio, and everyone can create beautiful designs like business collaterals, presentations, almost everything that you can think of. To check it out, you can visit designhill.com/studio. Lastly, you can follow all our speakers on Twitter and LinkedIn to learn more about sales strategy for your business. I'm sure they would be happy to help you. Last but not the least, if you want to build your brand today, use the coupon code COSA 15 to avail 15% discount on Designhill contest service. You will also get that code on your email box once the session is over, along with the recording of this session. On that note, I would like to say bye to everyone who joined us here today. Take care, guys, and stay safe.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.